Hey guys, today we're going to talk about properties of parallelograms. Obviously, we know parallelograms are quadrilaterals, and in moving into the unit of quadrilaterals, we're going to first talk about definition of a parallelogram. Our first property is definition of a parallelogram. And definition of a parallelogram says opposite sides are parallel. And I'm just going to use our symbol for parallel. Okay, so here is a drawing. Okay, so we tend to make a parallelogram almost like a slanted rectangle, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and give these vertices letters or points. Okay, and here are my opposite sides being parallel. So I have single arrowhead to single arrowhead and then double to double, meaning these two are parallel. Okay, so an example from that drawing would be that AB is parallel to CD, and then the other pair, which is BC, is parallel to AD. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the next property, which is consecutive angles are supplementary. I'm going to write that out. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, so essentially that means same side interior angles are supplementary. Yeah, from our side unit. Okay, so consecutive angles can also be thought of as same side interior angles for these problems. So I'm going to do a drawing for that. Sorry, my parallelogram is not very neat. Let's try that again. Okay, a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to give it the same vertices. Okay, so the consecutive angle to angle A is angle B and also angle D. Okay, so we say that angle A is consecutive with angle B and angle D. Okay. And the reason we can say that is from above, remember definition of a parallelogram says opposite sides are parallel. So if opposite sides are parallel, then again, we know same side interior angles are supplementary. So that's where that comes from. Okay, so I'm going to do an example. Give it the same vertices. Okay, so if angle C were 46 degrees, for example, then the question is, what would be the measure of angle B? And obviously you know that 180 minus 46 is 134. So angle B would be 134 degrees. Okay, next property. Opposite angles are congruent. Okay, so I'm going to write that in. Opposite angles are congruent. Okay, let's take a look at that. So again, I'm going to draw my parallelogram. You'll get good at drawing this stuff as we move along here. Okay, so opposite angles are congruent. So then we know angle B is congruent with angle D. And then we know angle A, which I'll use a double arc for, is congruent to angle C. Okay, so let's look at an example for this. Okay, so again, draw myself a parallelogram. Put the same vertices in, A, B, C, D. So let's see. If angle B is 105 degrees and angle A is 75 degrees, then we could find the measure of angle C and the measure of angle D. So in doing that, I know that opposite angles are congruent. So right away, I know the measure of angle C is going to have to be 75, right? And I know the measure of angle D is going to have to be 105. All right, moving right along here. All right, so the fourth property is opposite sides are also congruent. Okay? Opposite sides are congruent. Okay, so let's take a look at a drawing for that. And again, same parallelogram that I've been drawing, but obviously I'm giving you different information. So again, parallelogram ABCD. And again, opposite sides are congruent. So I'll use my tick marks to show that. All right, so here's an example. So again, A, B, C, and D. Now, let's say that side AB is 7. So then if I said to find side CD, you know, that would also be equal to 7. Okay? All right, last one. Slide down here. Diagonals bisect each other. I'm going to write that in. Diagonals bisect each other. Okay, now when you think of bisect, it splits it into 2 equal parts. Okay, so do a drawing. So again, I'm going to keep with my same parallelogram, A, B, C, D. I'm going to draw in the diagonals. Sorry, my hand is not very steady today. There's one diagonal, and there's the other. But we know that diagonals bisect each other. So diagonal AC is going to bisect diagonal BD. So it's going to split BD into 2 equal parts. And we know that diagonal BD is going to bisect diagonal AC. So it's going to split diagonal AC into 2 equal parts. And I'm going to call that point where the diagonals intersect, point P. Okay. Now, keep in mind, diagonals are not congruent. They bisect each other. Diagonals are not congruent. All right, so I'm going to write that in. Or not necessarily congruent, I should say. Okay, and that's for a parallelogram. Now, we are going to get into special parallelograms where you will see that there are 1 or 2 types where the diagonals are congruent. But just in general, for a general parallelograms, or for a general parallelogram, diagonals are not necessarily congruent. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at an example. Not doing a good job drawing here today. So again, here's parallelogram AB, CD. And in this case, I'm going to obviously draw in my diagonals. Okay. We'll have them intersect again at point P. And then I'm going to give some values here. Okay. So let's say this piece BP is 10 and this piece PC is 13. Let's find D and AP, and I'm just going to scroll over just a little bit. So again, we're going to find PD and AP. So PD, and then we'll find AP. All right, so PD is obviously going to be 10, because remember, the diagonals bisect each other. AP is going to be 13, because again, diagonals bisect each other. So there are 5 properties of parallelograms. Later on in the unit, we will get to special parallelograms. All right, so let's look at some application problems and some practice together. First one I'd like to look at is number 1. All right, so we need to find the measure of angle B. Well, we know that consecutive angles are supplementary. So angle B is consecutive to angle A. So then I know that angle A and angle B are supplementary. They are also same side interior angles. So therefore, the measure of angle B is going to be 116. And I'll put my degrees in there. Okay, so now let's look at number 3. Again, we're finding the measure of the indicated angle. So in number 3, they want us to find the measure of angle M. Well, we know that opposite angles are congruent. So if angle K is 96 degrees, then we know by default that angle M must also be 96 degrees because, again, opposite angles are congruent. All right, let's scroll down and look at number 5. Number 5. So it says find the value of each variable in the parallelogram. I know that opposite sides are congruent. So therefore, because 2 of my sides are being represented as an expression, I'm going to set up an equation to find the actual variable. So I'm going to set up 2 different equations. I'm going to have x plus 2 equals 4. And then I'm also going to have y minus 5 equals 12. All right, so in solving those, here I get x equals 2. And for y, I get y equals 17. And I'm done. All right, next, number 8. I'm going to pause the video and have you guys work out number 8. Make sure you show your work. If an equation is involved, we'll come right back. Okay, we're back. Hopefully you got the same answers that I did for number 8. M equals 4 and N equals 5. And you can see my work right there. Okay, and again, that comes from diagonals bisecting each other. Okay, so now let's take a look at number 11. Now we've got a little word problem here. So we're going to have to draw the diagram, which is no big deal. All right, so it says in parallelogram EFGH, the measure of angle G is 25 degrees less than the measure of angle H. So first, let me go ahead and draw myself a picture of what's going on. Okay, and this is parallelogram EFGH. Here. Okay. So angle G is 25 degrees less than angle H. So let's call angle H x. So then I can call angle G x minus 25. All right, so there's my sketch. It says find the measure of each interior angle, then label each angle with its measure. Well, I know that consecutive angles or same side interior angles are supplementary. So right away, I'm going to set up an equation showing just that. So add them up, set them equal to 180. X plus x minus 25 equals 180. And in solving that, my next line, I have 2x minus 25 equals 180. And continuing to solve, 2x equals 205. So therefore, x equals 102.5. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. It says label each angle with its measure. Yeah, I'll grab another color here. Okay. Grab something that will stand out a little bit. So I'll grab dark green. And let's see. So we know that x is 102.5. I'm going to kind of be squeezing here. I don't have a lot of space. So therefore, angle G would be 77.5. And then we know opposite angles are congruent. So angle E also has to be 77.5. And angle F is 102.5. Sorry, it's a little messy. All right, so that's number 11. We've labeled each angle with its measure. All right, let's take a look at 13. We're kind of moving right along here. It says find the indicated measure in parallelogram ABCD. So for number 13, they want us to find the measure of angle